Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting not so much live tonight. We are pre-recorded because we have a guest from Amsterdam. So we are on the International Public Radio here on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. Tonight's segment, as well as every night's segment, is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee. Thank you, Folgers. We love you and we appreciate you. Tonight we welcome Girard Aartson to the show, all the way from Amsterdam, and he will be discussing UFOs while going back in time and looking at different initial experiences and why they weren't being considered or even taken very seriously, and so much more. This man is just a wealth of information, and it's fascinating stuff. But in order to participate in the show, it'll be a bit different tonight because you are going to be listening to an amazing recorded show, which we don't do often. But join us on UFO Paranormal Radio Network's YouTube page, because that's where Amelia and I will be in chat throughout the recording of the show to interact with you all. So make sure you jump in there because we're going to have a lot of fun. So, Bubbles, how are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm good. This is a little bit different. Like it's in the middle of the day, and it is very different. It's daylight. It's daylight. So that's different for us because we're we normally do live, and it's a little bit of a shock.
It's just a little bit. My office faces south, so it's just I have so many coverings over there. It's not funny. Anyways, I always say I'm a vampire, but
yeah, I know. Daylight, it's a thing. It does exist. So
it's only good if you're on a beach. Just saying. I keep saying that, but it's only good if you're on a beach.
And then there's nothing like sitting by the water, looking at a nice full moon.
Yeah.
That's just
when you're away from North America, the beauty is because of all of our industry, we don't get to see the stars the way we do if we're in Europe or in the Caribbean or other, continents around the world. And
I think it depends if you're near metropolis because the lights of the city just block all that out. We have friends actually who live on the ocean in Nova Scotia, and it's always foggy. No, they don't.
They have fog. See, and I get a lot of fog too because of being on the mountain. Yes. I get a lot of fog. I never saw fog like this in Toronto ever, where it's seasonal. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. You can't see 10 feet in front of you at times. And in Toronto, like we would get fog maybe once or twice a year, and it was like, ooh, it's creepy, it's cool, it's like Halloweeny, right? Here it's like it's Tuesday.
That's like, wow.
It's Tuesday. Yeah.
Well, we do have like a really amazing guest tonight. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about him?
Sure, I will. Thank you, Michelle. Girard Aartson backpacked around the world in 1957, settled in Amsterdam in 1985, as a translator. Girard trained as an educator, earned his Master's of Education degree of Applied Sciences, and continues to mentor students of Amsterdam University. A published author, separating fact from fiction about UFOs and space visitors. Please welcome all the way from Amsterdam, our guest tonight, Girard Aartson.
And I'm going to go get him right now.
Yay.
Adding to the conversation.
So he sent us, just saying.
I know.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Welcome.
There we are.
I'm fine. I'm so sorry that I missed your call and
That's okay.
I'm so happy that we can still do it. Sorry, Amelia.
No, don't apologize. We're so happy that you're here.
Great. I'm happy that you'll have me.
I'm getting a feedback. I think. Who's on? Whose volume's on? Do you have your volume up? I'm thinking on your computer because you don't have headphones.
Do you prefer me to use my headphones?
Yeah, because then I won't hear myself talking.
Sure. No problem.
Great background.
Perfect.
There we go.
Excellent. Yeah, see? Now I don't hear myself.
Okay, good.
Perfect. Love your background, Girard.
There we are. So Welcome. This is really a pleasure. All the way from your neck of the woods to ours.
Amsterdam, it's called. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
that's
beautiful.
fantastic.
Are you in Ontario?
We are, and we
Wow.
stream live though out of New Orleans. Our network is actually in New Orleans.
I see. All right.
Yes.
Ontario, Neil Young.
Yeah.
That's where Neil Young is from. Yeah. One of
Neil
my
Young,
favorite.
Keanu Reeves. There's quite
Yeah.
a few. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about yourself. I'm gonna let you take this away. You'll find that our format is very laid back. We're very round table like. It's just like friends sitting around the table, getting to know one another. So tell us about your humble beginnings, as I call it, and how it got you to where we are right now.
Great. So we're recording already.
We are.
Yes. Okay. Um, yes. Well, I've been a student of the Ageless Wisdom teaching since I came back from my first trip in 1977 after I graduated from high school, secondary school here, which which you do here at the age of 18 or 19 in my case.
Mhm.
And we traveled overland with two friends to India. That was still possible then. The Iranian Revolution had not happened yet, and the
Wow.
Russian invasion of Afghanistan
Mhm.
was still, in the future in 1980. We were traveling in 1977 in India in December 77. I had a profound experience of oneness, which at the time just gave me a great sense of freedom, mostly. But I didn't do much with it yet. But on my way back, I read a book about really the ageless wisdom teaching, even though it was clothed in the terminology of yoga, the yoga of wisdom. Uh,
Yes.
and well, that's where it started really. I soon became, after my return, I did some more travels, 5 to 6 month travels, but in between I became involved with the work to spread the information coming from Benjamin Graham, British esotericist, whose mission it was to inform the world that we're actually on the cusp of a new age, and that the teacher for the new age is ready actually to enter our lives,
Mhm.
as happens every round about 2000 years.
Wow.
Uh, so historically we've seen teachers like Krishna and Buddha and Jesus and all those people. So this time is no exception, according to Benjamin Graham. Been involved with his work for over 40 years.
Mm.
And for me, my work as an author started when I discovered George Adamski's first book. Everybody thought at the time it was his first book. It was around 2008, I believe. I'd
Mhm.
read Flying Saucers Have Landed. I assume, are you familiar with Flying Saucers Have Landed?
Not the book. No, no.
Okay, that was published.
There's so much out there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This is one of the first books, perhaps the very first, making the explicit claim of having had contact with a visitor from space. So I was familiar with that book and his second book, Inside the Spaceships, about his encounters with visitors from other planets and the teachings that he received from them about the need for international cooperation and all the sensible things.
Mhm.
And then I came across his very first booklet, Wisdom of the Masters of the Far East, which was precisely in line with the books that I was reading by Benjamin Graham, Helena Blavatsky, and Alice Bailey, about the ageless wisdom teaching, and that started me on the path of looking for more background information about George Adamski, which I duly found, and I wrote my first book about him and published it in 2010. So that's really, in short, my backstory.
Wow, it sounds exciting. I think when you have that awakening, You know, it is very profound because you just realize everything as you know it, it isn't. It's just so much bigger, you
It
know.
is, yes.
And
Uh,
India is a pretty amazing place. I've known people who've gone to India and had profound experiences. They come back completely changed.
Yeah, it's very
and
spiritual.
the interesting thing is, I didn't go to India to find enlightenment or find a guru or
It
something.
found you.
I was just going out to find myself, really.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want with life? What do I want to do? I had no idea what I wanted to study.
Mm-hmm.
So I just needed some time to myself. Of course, I was traveling with friends, but um, and then this experience hit me. And like you said, it was profound, and it proved life changing. And also because I just recently wrote about my travel experiences on my first trip, in a blog. It's in Dutch, so I can share it, but it won't be much use unless you use Google Translate.
Yeah, no,
uh,
absolutely. We'll leave that to you.
uh, uh, but it was only then that I realized, wait, in my latest book, Pioneers of Oneness, that's exactly, well, exactly, it's a reflection of my experience then. And as I
Mm-hmm.
was preparing this book, I came
Mm-hmm.
across um, organizations like the Institute of Noetic Sciences, founded by Edgar Mitchell,
Mm-hmm.
and the Scientific and Medical Network, founded by David Lorimer and other people in the same year.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been researching the same kind of experiences of people since 1973.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you say, it's far from unique.
Edgar
And
Mitchell he was an advocate for so much, like
yeah,
in just exposing everything and putting it out there. You know, it was nice to see him come forward with
yes, yes,
the amount
and
of information he did.
he had this wonderful epiphany that he wrote about and talked about when he came back from the moon.
Yeah.
Um, I included a brief description of it in my book, and um, I've also I also have a similar epiphany from physicist Alan Lightman, the
Mm-hmm.
well-known physicist, who
Mm-hmm.
had a very similar experience while on a boat in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and the I think the significance for me is that it underscores the message of the visitors from space, that the visitors from space gave to the so-called contactees in the 1950s, that
Mm-hmm.
life is one, and that it is interconnected, and we're all interdependent. And
Mm-hmm.
unless we manifest and live according to that oneness,
Mm-hmm.
manifest that in practical terms in our lives, we will run the planet to the ground, and blow it to smithereens, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, I think, what we're seeing now in the world. If you look at the fierce competition and the need for people to compete for even survival, even in rich Western countries, with the platform economy and the gig economy, um, and it's really a sad state of affairs to see so many people struggling, while a handful are living like gods in paradise,
Mm-hmm.
seemingly not caring for the rest of humanity. And I'm not even mentioning the people who have been starving um, for decades, for lack of basic food and healthcare, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that oneness that was at the core of the message of the space visitors in the 1950s, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that motivated to write this book.
Yeah, I can see that. There have been a lot of testimonials from people who have had the opportunity to visit with those from the stars, as a lot of people will call them. I hate to just call them aliens or extraterrestrials because that can apply to so much. But, you know, they didn't like how we treated our poor, our elderly, our sick. There just didn't seem to be any real unification among the people. There was, you know, a concern, and of course, you know, how we treat the planet. We're basically raping it of everything it has, and that's only going to go on for so long. So I could see that being a concern. I think when they were start testing with the bombs, I think even looking at parallel dimensions, I mean, even that was a ripple effect that could not be undone, and I think that attracted a lot of attention from that point on, where they felt, okay, you know, who let the kids out? It's time to go and see what they're up to and take the toys away. You know, it really
Take the
had
matches away. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And like you say, you know, we've been raping the planet. We've been told that we've been raping the planet, pillaging it just for profit. We've known about the adverse, the terrible effects of high concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere. We've known about deforestation and the effects, and we've been warned even about climate change, possible climate change, even in the 60s, 1960s. And you know, with nature being denatured and our immune systems being undermined by our unhealthy food and life habits, really. Given the way we've set up our societies and our economies, is it any wonder that we've been plagued by a pandemic? You know, we need to ask ourselves, and I provide several references to scientists who say, including Dr. Lovejoy, who coined the term biodiversity way back in the 60s or 70s, that we have ourselves to blame. It's because of our weak immune systems and the way we've been treating nature and the planet, that it's become so easy for a pandemic to take hold and ravage society, really.
Do you believe that perhaps it's been bioengineered to do just that? Because that's a theory that's going around also. I just thought I'd put it out there.
There's so many theories, but you know, who would win by releasing a bioagent that does not stop at borders, or that affects potentially everyone, you know, except for, of course, the pharmaceutical giants. But that would be a very, I mean, I know that, you know, I know about the opioid crisis engineered in the US and elsewhere. But this seems to have originated in China somewhere. I'm not saying it was leaked from a laboratory that engineered there, because if it was a big pharma behind this, then how would it have leaked in China? You know, big pharma is not established, is not what do you call it? It's not based in China.
They don't need to be, though, when you look at theories, right? As a theory, I'm saying as a theory, don't
as
quote
a theory.
Me. That's as a theory, because I don't want to get ripped off of any network.
Just theories.
They don't necessarily have to be there. I mean, countries have been patsies before, but I agree with you on we have to look at ground zero is there. I mean, it's factual. It's not a theory. That is ground zero.
Yes, and I think, well, even more fundamentally, I think ground zero is the fact that we've ruined the planet and our natural habitat, our natural environment, as well as our immune systems. You know, if we hadn't been in this situation, I wonder how well, quotation marks, the virus would have been able to go around.
That's a very good point. You know, I believe a lot of people don't realize how important our oceans are either, our ecosystems, because they
Exactly.
don't realize, they see, I think they become numb to the photographs and the footage that is being shown about our animals, but that system keeps us alive. And
People don't want to see it. They can't.
they
They
don't
can't look. They can't take something like that. It's
know.
just too much.
But it's
Yes.
important because every one of us, I know a lot of people say, well, I'm only one person or I'm just this one family. Yes, but if there's millions of us thinking that way, we're all
Mhm.
contributing to this. It's
Exactly.
very
And
important to go back to, I was an adult, I was 10 years old in the late 70s. You know, I remember everything being recycled then, just because we never had anything that we didn't reuse. It was just the way we lived. And I think that's very important to go back.
yes, I think so too. And you make a very valid point, I think, about each of us being individually responsible and the need for each of us to take individual responsibility.
Mhm.
It's also, we also find that in the message from the space visitors through people like George Adamski, Howard Menger, Buck Nelson, Truman Bethroom, and many others in the 1950s, but also later in the United States, but also elsewhere, um, that each of us and our behavior and even our thoughts, our way of thinking, affect the people around us and our environment. Well, just imagine what effect it would have if we would change that to a positive attitude towards the people around us, or towards our environment, in our behavior, in our actions. The same ripple effect would would hold and would have a very beneficial result in terms of the environment and our living circumstances.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Um, in your book, I mean, you were mentioning even just a few minutes ago, you do quote George Adamski quite a bit. What is it about him that's really grabbed you to basically really format your writing and your theories around or ideologies around his writings and such, his experiences?
Well, I think there's two things. It started with Adamski being the first to speak out openly about his experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I met a man from space. This was in November 1952 in the desert. It was witnessed by six people, six of his
Mm.
companions.
Right.
He had a little group in up on Palomar Mountain in California, and they set out, the seven of them, one day in November 1952. He had this experience. It turned out later that other people had similar experiences, but he was the first to speak out about it. Um, that he was also the first to emphasize in the message of the visitors that contacted him, the need for humanity to stop meddling, playing with nuclear energy, with with nuclear fission technology,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because of how detrimental that is to our also again to our planet.
Mm.
So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, when I found his books of teachings that for many people seem to have been unrelated. So I found Wisdom of the Teachings in the Far East, that was published in 36. It's almost like a concise summary of the wisdom teachings that cover many volumes. It was really very interesting. Later on, I uncovered his very first book, The
Right.
Invisible Ocean, um, in which he speaks about life as um, a sea, an ocean of consciousness. He says reality is an ocean of consciousness. And and then just a few years ago, I came across books by scientists, system scientists like Irvin Laszlo, who was dubbed
Mm.
modern day genius in a PBS documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Philip Goff and others, the Galileo Commission report, who say exactly the same thing. They come exactly to the exact same conclusion. Even Max Planck, physicist in the 1940s, said something to the same effect, that really objective reality is not really very real when you look at the fundamental level. It's really a sea of vibrations that that are packed in bundles of energy that sort of become more and more physical and coagulate in forms that we see and experience in our bodies and the objects around us.
Mhm.
So when I read that George Adamski had formulated those thoughts in 1932, and that these are now being confirmed by system science, by quantum research, by consciousness research, that his claims of meeting physicists from space are now being confirmed by science. I think I shared my latest infographic with you about scientists who recently been speaking out about the reality of extraterrestrials
Mhm.
being on our planet, their presence here. That confirms his claims and the claims of all the other contactees of the 1950s before, because at one point the whole narrative changed
Mhm.
into abductions and cattle mutilations, etc. Well, we need to think about who profited from the confusion that arose from those claims.
Mm-hmm.
Think military, defense industry, etc.
Absolutely.
Oh, I agree.
So
Absolutely.
that's why I think George Adamski is the most important exponent of the contactee movement of the 1950s. And his work has been derided, it has been dismissed, it has been ridiculed, and it's not, I'm not an evangelist or anything, but
Mhm.
whenever I find something that confirms his views, his teachings, his claims, I like to put it out there, because there haven't been many people who have been taking him seriously, and my work shows that really we should.
I agree. And I think being now in modern day, fast forward into modern times, everybody, has a camera phone. Everybody's got a camera right there at all times for the most part. And a lot of people are awakening, especially in lieu of the preliminary disclosure that the United States came out with. I think more people are aware now that, oh, this is a thing. So they got the eye on the sky sort of deal. But I think that is slowly bringing new interest into this whole concept. And it will validate, people like George Adamski and other people who maybe have just touched on it, you know, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I mean, UFOs, they could have been here all along. If you go back and look at, biblical writings, the Bible itself, for those who really, follow it, does speak about abductees. And a lot of those stories of the Old Testament never even made it to the New Testament. Enoch, Ezekiel, there's two right there. Jesus himself, there's another one. Like, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
If you look in some of the ancient religious paintings or paintings of the Renaissance age, you'll see photos, by really big artists, Da Vinci being one, and you'll see a UFO in the corner. I don't understand why people, even people of faith, because a lot of people think, I've just mentioned this example specifically because of people of faith. They don't think that you can have a belief in both, but you can have a belief in both. So you really should be looking for those answers, because I believe, and I know I'm not the only one, a lot of that has been kept from us. And those who come out, like George Adamski and others, came up and it's just like, no, you don't talk about that. So they make them look foolish and they try to discredit them. Meanwhile, it's just information that let's just say that governments and military keep for themselves and instill fear. It's always been about instilling fear. And when people get comfortable with this level, then they have to amplify that a bit. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's interesting that you make these references to the biblical episodes where apparently UFOs, spacecraft, extraterrestrials play a part. It was actually in the first book, Adamski's first book, which was a co-publication, really. The first part of the book was written by an Irish aristocrat, Desmond Leslie, and he was really the first to document historical cases of extraterrestrial visitations, all the way back to the Indian Vedas and the Old Testament, etc. So that was out in 1953 already.
Right.
Adamski's story was appended as part 2 to that book. So it's been out there for a long time already. When you say that the initial disclosure efforts from the U.S. government may help to bring back the focus on Adamski and the other contactees. I doubt if that is what they're aiming for when you see how much it is framed already in terms of a threat. Yes, it may be aliens. We don't know yet, but because we don't know it, we should treat it as a threat, which is an invitation for Congress, Senate to approve larger budgets for the military industry.
Of course.
And I must say that even though I admire their courageous work, even people like Stephen Greer and Steve Bassett, they refrain from referring to Adamski and other contactees, even when current day scientists like Irvin Laszlo, Jaime Shedd most recently, Brian O'Leary, and who have you, are talking about the presence, the extraterrestrial presence on Earth, some of them even explicitly saying they're not hostile, they're not here to do anything to us, they've been monitoring us, completely in line with what the contactees in the 1950s have been saying. They're here to help, my title of my second book, Here to Help, UFOs and the Space Brothers, in order to help us make a peaceful transition into the new age, which I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. And that's also where the link is with the the emergence of the teacher for the new age. They are here in support of that historical, that momentous event. Of course, if humanity chooses, no one, neither the space visitors nor the masters of wisdom or the world teacher, the master of all the masters, will impose anything on us, because that will not last. When something is imposed, it won't last. It has to come from us, from our own insight and our own understanding. And but the UFOs, the visitors from space, are here in support of the momentous transition into a new age for humanity, for the planet. We're coming into alignment with the constellation of Aquarius. We're actually in full alignment, not full alignment, but for the when you look at the energetic balance, and I'm now quoting Benjamin Graham, the energies from the constellation of Pisces are now less strong, weaker than the energies coming from the constellation of Aquarius. The energies of Pisces have informed the structures as we know them now over the past, that have grown over the past 2,000 years, based on idealism and individualism. And these are very important qualities for humanity in our evolution of consciousness. But we are now at the point where our structures are crystallized and our thought systems are crystallized. Individuality is now the ideal, and we're all fighting each other so to speak, for our place under the sun. Whereas the energies from Aquarius are, are imbuing us with synthesis and oneness, and we now need to start putting that individuality of our own volition in the service of the oneness of humanity. So everyone will contribute their talents, their own individual, from their own individual backgrounds and upbringings, etc., and their talents to the greater good of furthering the evolution of humanity and creating new structures to enable us to do that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that these visitors from the stars, I always say the word visitor very with a grain of salt, because I am one of those believers that think that they could have potentially have been here the entire time, that they don't necessarily come from, not that they don't all, they're not all here. There are many that come from different star systems, but I believe that there are some who are very well rooted on our planet, within our oceans, our mountains, underground. Planet's very old. Our civilization is quite new, and we've been purged many times. So, through the ages. But do you think that they can help us and intervene, or do you think, is it like that, like the prime directive where they can't intervene? Let's go with that.
Well, I think it's a bit of both,
Okay.
and I agree with you. They've been here since time immemorial,
Right.
and there have been times where they were living and operating more openly among us.
Yes.
In times of Atlantis, I imagine, the Atlantean cultures,
Yes.
civilizations. At one point in history, towards the end of the Atlantean civilization, humanity took a wrong turn, and we were left to our own devices. Not only the extraterrestrials, but also the masters of wisdom, who are our own elder brothers, who have evolved out of the human kingdom on this planet, and many of them remain, rather than going on to higher planets, higher systems for their continued evolution. Many of them remain to inspire and mentor us on our journey back to the source. And the same goes for the visitors from space. I don't think all or many of them necessarily stay here or remain here for thousands of years, but they are coming and going, and that has been going on forever, because the solar system, to begin with, life is one. It manifests through the evolution of consciousness, but within the cosmos, the solar system is a unit with the sun as the soul, so to speak, of the being, just as we have our soul that we need to manifest. And within this system, there is, just as in our own body, all our bodies, mental, emotional, and physical, there's a constant interaction. We can have our minds can have an influence on our bodies, for good or for bad. The same is true for the solar system. Personally, I believe that but this is a point of minor importance, I think, in our discussion. I believe the visitors from space are from within our own solar system, because many of the planets in our system are evolved to such a point that we have so much to learn from our brothers and sisters in the rest of the solar system. Not all planets are more highly evolved than Earth. Some are less evolved, so that it would not make much sense for people from even higher systems to come here, because we can hardly grasp the teachings from the brothers and sisters from Venus that came through Adamski and Menger and all the others. So but that's my personal understanding. But yes, they've been here all along, and they are. See, they started landing openly. They even allowed some of their craft to crash, so that there was no denying the reality of their craft and the craft, the occupants of the craft. You know, we all know that that the wreckage and bodies were salvaged in Roswell and other places. The military base in Roswell, near Roswell, sent out this press release that was published in the evening edition of the Phoenix Gazette and other, or the Roswell newspaper and some other regional newspapers, which was promptly denied the next morning from Washington. And somebody was sent to, it was very well documented in Stephen Greer's latest documentary, The Cosmic Hoax. Somebody was sent from Washington to make sure that the press was shown, no, this was, this was a weather balloon, that kind of nonsense. So there were crashes, there were live meetings with visitors from space. People reported on them, and this, the message came: you need to cooperate on an international level if you want to survive, because with your atomic bombs, eventually you will destroy yourselves. This came in the middle of the Cold War. So what government would allow this? Because the contactees were getting a lot of traction with their message and a lot of attention, and the public was really interested. You know, people were wary. The Second World War had just finished, and now we were engaged in a Cold War with the attending psychological stress of nuclear annihilation, the threat of nuclear annihilation. So the government didn't want to lose the public support for their huge defense and nuclear spendings. So that's when the narrative was bent towards, an alien threat, abductions, misinformation, and all those things. And even though there have also been reports of attempts to establish diplomatic contacts at a diplomatic level in Washington, and no doubt elsewhere in the world, which were, at least in the United States, and of course that's always been, since the Second World War, one of the superpowers in the world. So what the US does, that goes, at least in the West, and these attempts were met with refusal. So from that time on, the visitors only contacted individuals, because individuals, their stories, they can be denied, they can be ridiculed, they can be dismissed. And we see the same thing nowadays with these scientists that I've listed from 2008. I think there's 7 of them now. You see newspapers reporting it, and there's a big brouhaha. Look at this Filipov, Lazar Filipov from Bulgaria. He was the deputy director of the Institute of Space Research there. And he comes out in the Telegraph, the British newspaper, saying, the space visitors have been here for a long time, but they hesitate to contact us because we're not really ready yet. And people are laughed at. He was stripped of his academic positions. The next time somebody comes along, they're laughed at again, they're ridiculed. But there's never any reporter who said, wait, not so long ago, there was this other scientist who said a very similar thing. What's going on here? If they had done that, they would have a running story now starting in 2008, running up till, December last year, of a growing number of scientists who say exactly the same thing as the people in the 1950s. And so there's an interesting fine line that the visitors are treading between non-interference and keeping themselves in the picture. You know, they can't impose their reality on us.
Mhm.
But at the same, same with the crop circles. Some have been faked, but many crop circles, and of course, especially when the phenomenon started, they're like
Yeah.
business cards. You know, visiting, showing us, hey, something is going on here. You know, we better pay attention, and it's up
But
to us to pay attention or not.
why, I mean, deny? I mean, we know that Presidents Eisenhower, Truman, Nixon, among others, you know, we're all fully aware. Eisenhower and Truman sat allegedly with, you know, visitors. I mean, there were witnesses. You can't hide this. This is all over the place now. Documents are surfacing. You know, it's out there. It happened. So why do you think that you have all of this evidence, and yet it's like one hand of the government saying, "Okay, it's here. It's all over the place. You can't say this didn't happen. We know it happened." And now you're trying to say, "Oh, we're not sure they exist." It's almost like, how are we supposed to take any of them with anything but a grain of salt? Because the left hand clearly does not want to work with the right hand.
Well, I think to start with, we have to acknowledge that it's not the government who says we have all this information, we have all this evidence. They've been denying it. They've been covering it up and keeping it, under lock, etc. It's been people like Steve Bassett and Grant Cameron and many others over the years, other people before them, who came after the contactees, who have been doggedly digging for information, for documents. There have been some leaks, like the Majestic documents, but those leaks, when they come from even a back channel from government, you know, we must always be cautious about potential misinformation slipped in with authentic materials, to keep the confusion going. So on the one hand, we have the results of people who have never stopped looking for evidence, despite the government's best efforts to cover it up. And on the other hand, we have the efforts of the visitors themselves and the contactees to keep humanity informed of the reality of their presence.
It's so hard to know what to believe. Sorry, Gerard. It's just so hard to know what to believe. And obviously, the governments have done a really good job at this, because they have a lot of people saying, well, the moon landing was faked, well, this was faked. And they've accomplished what they need to do by keeping that group actively, you know, showing, oh, this is a farce. And they don't have to put the energy in, because the people are.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
I believe the internet's just loaded with way too many conspiracy theorists that have no real value to their information. It's just gone too far, almost like a broken telephone of our time. You know, it's just so frustrating.
You're absolutely right. And that's why I emphasize time and again the importance of looking for similarities and corroborations. I don't go by just one source. I don't go by just George Adamski. I look for confirmation of what he says and what he's been told in the accounts of other people. There's always going to be some differences, but they're always on the level of detail, never on in the greater picture of what they're saying, their beneficent nature, their advice, their teaching about the need for international cooperation and the oneness of life, the oneness of humanity. Now, recently, in my latest book, I've brought forward corroboration for many of their points from the viewpoint of science, where before I had already introduced corroboration and confirmation from the viewpoint of the metaphysical teachings, the wisdom teachings. So that's how you can find out for yourself what to believe. I actually published a little book, and it's also freely available as a PDF, called Before Disclosure. And I summarize there the things that we do know and can know for certain by doing just that, based on the original accounts before the misinformation started and kicked in, because the cover-up and the misinformation led to the conspiracy theories, the whole confusion caused by those things. So when we go back to the source, I think it's possible. It's very well possible to determine for ourselves what is true and what is authentic. And based on that, when we have established that, then we can check for ourselves any new accounts of contact, claims of contact. Well, where does it fit in, or where is it confirmed in what we know already, or where does it go against what we know already?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that, I mean, in this day and age, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of eyewitnesses. So what does the military and the government, what are they left with? They can't keep instilling fear and discrediting all these people who have been coming forward throughout the decades. Now we have this new false flag, alien invasion. That's the next fear.
Alien
What are your
threats, yeah.
thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I mentioned it already, and it's see, you're right. They can't cover it up any longer.
Right.
The military personnel have come out with videos have leaked. They've had to confirm that the videos are authentic and the objects are unidentified. Interesting, by the way, that in the 50s, the media, the military were talking about flying saucers, spacecraft, very real things. And then through the misinformation and the conspiracies, they became unidentified flying objects.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, they've become unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right.
Even less tangible.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still doing their best to keep it as mystical as possible, but they
Keep
can't
us
deny it.
jaded.
Yes,
Keep us
yes,
jaded. Yes,
yes,
absolutely.
but they can't deny it any longer. And so many things. You said it, Michelle. Probably millions of people have had their own sighting, and so many times you hear of people when they realize they're seeing something that could not possibly be of this earth. It's life changing because it means that you see a live connection with the universe. You see that the universe is alive. It can't. Inevitably changes you in your view of life.
It does, and I think people feel chosen in a way. There's so many reports of people who see something, but they're the only one, and they could be in a group of however many people. Like, we didn't see that, so it feels like it's very special, but on a different level. I want to back up one moment to how we treat the planet. There are so many, let's say, people. You have Sir Richard Branson, you have Elon Musk, you have China, you have different countries and people racing to get to Mars. Mars is basically a dead planet. Some believe that it is really where some of these beings came from. They had to escape it. Should we be looking to Mars and saying, why are we going to repeat the same mistake here? Why are we trying to colonize a dead planet? And why are we not trying to make this one, which is lush and has everything we need to sustain us, better?
Good question.
Thank you. I try.
Well, there's actually two things to your question. Mars as a dead planet and our some people's attempts to colonize and replicate the the destruction of our planet throughout the solar system, beginning with Mars. Of course, on this last point, I think that's totally ridiculous. If we refuse to acknowledge what we're doing to this planet, how would we expect to survive on the next planet? Maybe we'll manage for a couple of thousand years or 100,000 years, but eventually the same thing will happen if we don't change our outlook, our understanding of the interconnectedness of life, the interconnectedness of ourselves with the planet, seeing the planet as an integral organism, with its balance that we have disturbed. So it's not a solution, of course, going to another planet. About Mars being a dead planet, that's on the physical level.
Right.
We need to understand, and this is from the Ageless Wisdom teachings, planets are at different levels of manifestation. Life is at different levels of manifestation on different planets. Our planet, and that's why it's quite unique in the solar system, is the stream of life, the manifestation of life, has precipitated onto the dense physical plane on our planet. It used to be on the same plane on Mars a couple of millions of years ago, according to the wisdom teachings, but it has evolved up to higher planes of matter. We need to understand that there's really 7 planes of matter. We only know our science only recognizes the physical, liquid, and gaseous matter. But at the same time, astrophysics tells us that there's about 90% of the universe that we cannot pinpoint, that we cannot say it's this or that because we can't even find it. That means, and that's based on their calculations of the mass of the universe. And then they say there's 90% that we can't find. Where is that? According to the wisdom teachings, and increasingly, the latest discoveries in astrophysics are confirming this. According to the wisdom teachings, there are 4 further planes of matter, atomic, subatomic matter, which are called the etheric or subtle planes of matter. And this is where, our aura, for instance, most people don't see auras. Most people don't see UFOs, and that's because they're on the higher planes of matter, which are outside our range of vision. Just as there are sound frequencies that are outside our range of hearing, and light frequencies that we don't see with our physical eyes. So likewise, there are planes of matter that are beyond our range of vision. And when we would have that etheric vision and we would go to Mars, we would see that even though it's a smaller planet, there are many more people. The population density there is much higher than on Earth. And they have their forests, they have their seas, they have their animals, they have their cities. Everything is there. But because it's on the higher planes of matter, the etheric planes of matter, when we send a rover to Mars and it goes around taking photographs, it only sees the lowest physical plane, and it's fascinating to see, of course, and to have this little machine driving around and sending us feedback of what it encounters there. But it's not registering life because we don't have the instruments to register life at higher planes of existence. And the same is true for all the planets in our system.
Right.
I'm just going to do a quick station ID. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Our special guest tonight, all the way from Amsterdam, we are so grateful, is the great Girard Aartson tonight. What an amazing show, by the way. I am just completely over the moon with this conversation today. Thank you for being with us. We are live we are recorded today. I'm so used to saying live. We are recorded today in the gorgeous city of New Orleans on 105.3 FM radio. This broadcast is also on International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials Radio, International Public Radio and UPRN Talk Radio. This broadcast tonight is fully sponsored by the amazing people at Folgers Coffee. Thank you so much, Folgers. No one loves you more than Michelle and I do. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Wow. If I could go back just a second, because I was listening to you and I'm just so fascinated by you. I honestly am. What I don't understand you're welcome, speaking about when Michelle mentioned like Elon Musk and Sir Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, everybody is so quick to put billions of dollars into flying to another planet, but none of them are very quick to take care of what we have going on here. Why do you think that's happening? Like it's almost like they know something we don't know, or are they just trying to create their own world? Like that basis, that kind of, teeter-totters on conspiracy as well, though.
Personally, I think it's more to do with prestige, competition. It's that,
yeah.
Yes, power, competition. It's a power trip, really.
When you have that much money, right? When you have that much money, what else is there? There's just power.
Yeah.
I agree.
Who wants to sail around on a yacht when you go out to space and you're only one of three? That's much cooler, way cooler. So it's just childish, really. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think
it's irresponsible. It's irresponsible in my opinion. Yeah, yes. There's no oneness there. That's for sure.
No.
There's so much research that can be done with, awareness and evolution. I think when you're looking at oneness, you have to evolve into oneness. It's about vibrations and frequencies, within. Like the people don't realize the planet does emit a certain frequency. And if you want to be one with it and everything else, you really do need to match that frequency. You can heal your own body of diseases with frequency and vibrations. The universe, it gives you everything you need. You just have to tap into it. You just have to blend in with it. And I think money would be better spent tapping into that as a resource. And I believe that, ET visitors from space, I believe they will come. Stephen Greer talks about that now, how to bring them to you. And I know during, I believe it was the 1980s, Russian scientists said that they didn't have to go to space to look for life because they had found a way to bring the visitors, the extraterrestrials, to them. And they took an old nuclear site and they would call them and they would come and they would be able to interact and learn things. They never had to go to space, according to them, for this specific reason. Yeah. Why can't we all do that? Of course we can.
Yeah, of course. And like you say, it's a matter of tuning in and tapping into. See, life, and why don't we all do that? In order to do that, tapping into the energies of cosmos or the frequency of the planet, we first need to have a proper understanding of ourselves, of who we really are and what we are. And I think that's the main thing that's lacking at the moment. We have no idea who we are. We are so caught up in the race for survival. We hardly have any time. And when we have a minute to ourselves, we just want distraction. We want to Netflix and chill and share our rare moments of relaxation on Instagram and all those things. We are, and our whole system now is organized around distraction. You cannot go anywhere, you cannot see anything, you cannot do anything because we all have our phones with us and we're constantly interrupted.
Tunnel vision, right?
Interrupted by notifications. We need your attention. So that keeps us from returning to ourselves and finding ourselves eventually. And it's a long process as it is, even without the notifications and the mobile phones distracting us, or the constant commercials on TV and radio. um, Even without that, it's a long process to come into contact with our souls, um, and work towards a point where we can begin to manifest and the divinity, because we are a spark of our souls, are a spark of the divine.
Yes.
Our purpose
Yes.
in life is to give expression to that divinity, each in their own individual way. And it starts very crude and often very warped in selfish behavior with a very young soul. But as we progress on the path of return, along the path of evolution, we get better and better at it through the process of reincarnation, through the process of the law of karma. We learn about the things that are important in order to live a proper life in right relationship to ourselves, to our loved ones, to other people, in right relationship to the planet, etc. So that's a gradual process, and that path of return, according to the wisdom teachings, that takes thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives, as it is. We're now in a sort of what do you call that? A pressure cooker in this
Yes.
time history,
Right.
where everything seems to go wrong that can go wrong. But at the same time, it's a very exciting time, of course, because the technology that we have shows that we are one. We are instantly aware if something happens on the other side of the planet, something good or something terrible. We're instantly aware. We're in constant contact on the physical level, except we don't realize yet that we are truly one humanity. We are one organ, I should say, in the planetary organism. We need to become, and I quote several sources in my book, we need to become the mind of the planet. We have to become coordinated. And this is the pivotal time in the history of human evolution, where a critical mass of humanity needs to make that shift in awareness. Not 100%, not all of humanity. That's not even possible. Some social scientists have found out, and I quote them too in my book, that for positive social change, it's enough if 3.5% of people are actively involved in a country. 3.5%. That's not a whole lot.
No.
It's still a sizable number, but that seems to be the critical mass to make that to go over the tipping point. So we need to come to a point, those of us who are ready to do so, to start looking inward and to find ourselves, come in contact with our souls through meditation, through service, and become aware of the real meaning of life, which is to find right relationships with those around us, with ourselves, with the planet, and begin to give expression to our divine nature, because all of us are divine, except most of us don't know it, and many of us, in organized religions, have separated divinity from themselves, so that so that we can be sinful and do all kinds of rubbish things to each other, and then go to the temple or the church or the mosque and pray to God to help us. But God manifests through us, or He doesn't. But that's up to us.
So we work as a collective. So what we put out into the collective.
Sorry, Michelle. That sounds a bit like a hive mind, and that's actually not what we're looking for. Okay. Unity is not the same. Should not be mistaken for uniformity. Unity only works in diversity. Unity is only really unity if it is made up of individual talents, people from different backgrounds with different interests, and everyone contributing towards the same goal. But not everybody needs to contribute the same thing, because what would that would be a barren life.
But what I mean by a collective is if you put something out there, okay, because we are all individuals, but if you still put something out into the universe, something grabs it, and if it's nothing but negativity, then that branches out. It's like a spider web effect. And that was what becomes, it seems to branch out to everybody. I think when you're speaking of unity, you have to look, I agree, on a different level, but you have to get out of that hive mentality if that's the case. Because what you put out there does come back. And for every action, there's a reaction. Yeah. So, it's like if you're in a room and you turn around and you're yelling at somebody in the room and you walk away, you come back, that moment in time, that imprint is still there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you put that out there, where does it go? It gets absorbed back in to, that's what I say, with a collective. It is like a hive mentality to a degree. And I think that's partially what maybe people have to break away from.
Well, I think
to be unified, like you're explaining.
About two different things now.
Okay.
What I was saying is that we need to become coordinated in our actions and our thinking, in terms of the well-being, the well-being of humanity as a whole, not as a nation, America first, that kind of competition, but well-being of humanity as a whole, the well-being of the planet. And in order to do that, in order to solve the immense problems that we've created, we need everybody's talent. We need, when the people, millions and millions who've been starving over the past decades for lack of food, lack of healthcare, etc., when they would have had a proper education and a proper life, and they could have had their minds fully developed and educated, they could have contributed massively to solving the problems that we have. That's the kind of collectivity. Yes, I agree with you. If that's what you mean. But I want to make sure that we don't give listeners the impression that we should end up something like the Borg and Star Trek.
No. That's not what I mean at all. No.
The exact opposite.
Yeah, I'm talking as a mindset. You just, what you put out there somehow gets absorbed, and when everybody has a collective thought.
A bigger whole. Is that what you mean? When by absorbed, it becomes part of a bigger whole, bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, I agree with you with respects to, we don't take care of our poor. We take very little care of our elderly. We have people starving all over the world. And like you say, people can contribute. Maybe, there's that little hidden gem in there, several, that could be the next Stephen Hawking. But I mean, you look, Stephen Hawking was brilliant, but he did not agree that we should make contact with extraterrestrials. He was against that message that we have going out in space.
That's a great point. He had great fear about how it would be perceived.
And he's not the only physicist or astrophysicist that does.
Yeah.
But that shows that you can be brilliant and still not have full understanding.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I have full understanding, but if you or full knowledge, because if you look at the evidence, there's nothing to fear. Yes, there are there are confirmations also from the Masters of Wisdom that not all planets are equally evolved, and there are planets even in our own solar system that are far less evolved than our planet, and there are beings there. Benjamin Graham has said so too. That you wouldn't like to meet on a dark night in an alley somewhere. Quite terrifying. But they are not allowed to come here because this is such a crucial time in our evolutionary history, and the solar system, as I indicated, it works as an integral organism, so it takes care of itself. and our planet has been guarded off for the time being from these negative influences that used to be able to come here and have had their nefarious influence in previous ages. Um, but because this is such a crucial time, such a momentous time in our awakening, that for the time being, and this comes from three independent sources. Let me think. I know Wilbert Smith, the Canadian ufologist and researcher, said so in one of his articles. The American scientist Michael Wolff, he wrote about that in his book Catches of Heaven. And Benjamin Graham, who also worked with the Space Brothers in the 1950s, and who's best known for his mission about making known the emergence of Maitreya, the world teacher, has said a very similar thing. So there's a ring of light that's been placed around our planet to make sure that at the moment we cannot be disturbed by those negative influences. And yes, Stephen Hawking, he was brilliant, but he didn't know everything. And I agree when there might be hidden gems among the people who have been starving, who have been left to rot. But at the same time, we don't only need hidden gems, we need everyone. We cannot do without one single human being. We need everyone. We need the bricklayers, we need the plumbers, we need the teachers, we need the geniuses, we need everyone.
No, absolutely. What are you hoping to achieve with your research? What would you like to see come of it?
I hope to first take away people's fear, that's that we mentioned, that's being instilled still by government misinformation and conspiracy theories.
Yes.
I try to educate people about the reality of the presence of the extraterrestrial visitors and their intentions based on corroborations and similarities in the original accounts, confirmed by the latest scientific insights, and again confirmed based on the Ageless Wisdom teachings. I hope it helps people also to realize the importance of their individual responsibility, and that it will help them see, wait, I have to begin looking at myself and what I do, how I live, and position myself in this life and in this world. And if my work manages that with even a few people, that would be great.
No, I agree. Put that out.
Exactly. I love your energy.
Oh, thank you.
I really do.
Well,
I feel starstruck in some way, which doesn't happen with me at all.
Really, wow. Well, I'm flattered, and I'm happy that my message is coming across, my information is coming across in apparently a coherent manner. So that's a plus.
It's
and I thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh my gosh, you are so refreshing. I've been watching a lot of the documentaries, and I've always wondered, they put these documentaries out or these docufilms, and they say, we're gonna give full disclosure on everything we know and everything that we believe in, and yet I have to wonder how much of it is edited by a higher source or a government before it gets out there. I feel sometimes that we're being led to believe that we're being told everything by these people and these experiencers, but maybe they're being directed as well as to what to put out there.
I think it's a mix of two things. For sure, some of these things will have been deliberately directed in that, steered in that direction, and for the other part, I think a lot of people just lack the discernment, the sense of discrimination to figure out for themselves what could be real and what could be fake.
Could it be fear? I
Oh,
mean,
definitely. Lots of people are being
people come out and disclose their experiences, and next thing you know, they're being followed, they're being threatened. They're, you know, how many experiences you read about, but how many don't you read about?
Yeah, yeah, and even the original contactees have various statements where they said they were offered money or intimidation, to retract their stories. Unfortunately, many of them didn't. But indeed, yeah.
But why? I mean,
Why?
that's. I understand way back in the day, Cold War. You just, they're trying to get technology, but are we not beyond that point now?
You know what's at stake? Big pharma, big agriculture, big tech. If you look at the U.S. Senate, I don't think there's one senator there who isn't a millionaire. People, when the establishment, and I'm not talking about 13 bloodlines and the Illuminati and what have you. I'm talking about the global elite who gathers in Davos in Switzerland every year to sort of set the direction for the world economy, all in their own self-interest. They say it's a free market and that they're doing these things to create a free market and that will help democracy. Well, we've seen over the last 40 years that the free market undermines democracy. If anything, it ruins democracy and judicial systems. And the people who have managed since Ronald Reagan and since Margaret Thatcher in the UK and various other governments, the start of neoliberalism. Of course, there were elites before that, but especially since the start of neoliberalism, they have amassed such a fortune, so much economic power. They stand to lose that. And, what better way to keep the people divided than by spreading misinformation and fear? That's what's behind it.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I think if you're getting knowledge, let's say medical knowledge, then that takes away that whole business also. Energy is, you have the stuff that makes the sense, powering the planet, things like that. But if you start getting in now and helping people medically, because there are stories of people having experiences with extraterrestrials and they were given concoctions to basically help them. And one man did start a pharmaceutical company with this concoction and became very wealthy. So was that the right thing to do, or should he have just been passing that on as in free information that he was given?
Yeah. Well, we each have our own responsibility.
Are we doing it
Well,
wrong?
we all have our own responsibility, and some people get an opportunity and they do the right thing. Other people, they can't resist the temptation and go for the wealth. Yeah.
Look at the pharmaceutical company. I won't give the name, but they are a generic brand, and he and his wife ended up murdered in Toronto.
Yeah.
You have to look at these in with your eyes wide open as to, sure, it's easy to say that they were wealthy and they crossed someone. I'm sure he crossed a lot of people, a lot of big pharma companies, by putting out the same product for a third of the price, if not less. So it's sad.
Gotta watch
really
whose toes
sad.
you're stepping on.
Absolutely.
Guess, probably. So, well, I don't know. I would love to see your vision come into fruition. Of course, I think it's great that you're bringing all of this forward. I like to see there's a lot of stories being leaked right now, even from astronauts who came back from different, moon landings with these experiences and were told you cannot talk about it. You have to pretend it never happened. and they had to go their entire lives. And only in their later years did they say, no, heck with it, I'm just going to disclose all of this.
Yeah.
So I guess it's about being a pioneer and taking that big leap for mankind, as they say,
Really?
and put the info out there.
Exactly right. Yes.
So where do you go from here with these books? What are you going to do next? What's your project? And
Through my latest book, Pioneers of Oneness, and actually the book before that, where I republished George Adamski's first publication, The Invisible Ocean,
right.
I've been put on the path of realizing that we're actually talking about the evolution of consciousness.
Right.
We are an evolving soul. Our individual souls evolve on the path of evolution back to the source.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that aspect that I will be elaborating on in my coming articles and books, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I have no concrete ideas yet, but I'm collecting interesting story. I've been reading very interesting science books about really people from the forefront of science: Erwin Laszlo, Philip Goff, and
Mm-hmm.
others. And it's exciting and amazing to see how close science is getting to the age-old postulates of the wisdom teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine that my next publications will be going in that direction, but somehow it always comes back and ties in with the reality of the extraterrestrial presence, because they are the shining lights, along with our elder brothers, brothers in the generic meaning of everyone, brothers and sisters, and everyone in between. Um, our elder brothers, the masters of wisdom on this planet, and the space brothers, they are the shining lights. They are the beacons that are calling us on the path of evolution. So it
Mm-hmm.
always ties in with that for me. And of course, um, I I'm I've been so closely involved with Benjamin Graham's work for over 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which was and is such a hopeful message of humanity is not alone. The world teacher is here. He's just waiting for the right time for humanity to be at its most receptive for his message of justice, creating justice and sharing and peace, um, to step forward along with a group of his masters of wisdom. And once that declaration has been made, that emergence has become a reality, the contact, there will also be open contact with the visitors from space. So, it's really a very hopeful um, future that I'm looking at, and for me, it's not too far off. It's I don't see how the situation on this planet can get any worse, really. So I expect this to happen really any time now.
Mm-hmm.
There's
So
hope for everyone.
there's hope. Yeah, here's to hoping. So essentially, it's like a blend of science meets spirituality, and with the assistance, I suppose, of extraterrestrials, that they
Exactly.
are spiritual evolved being. They're not here to take over. I mean, I think if they're here to take over, they would have done it. I think that's the biggest fear, is just,
Yeah.
oh, they're coming to take over, and we're going to be, we're going to be inconsequential.
Yeah. Why wait for hundreds of thousands of years to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
I know. It
I
just
know.
doesn't
Just
match
give
up
it.
with the historical
Yeah.
facts at all.
No,
Yeah.
I know. I
I think
know.
it's a very ignorant notion, but
But that's
yeah.
the false flag, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
false flag that they're waving right now. I think people, you know, media, as much as it has its benefits, also can be the biggest culprit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're owned by these elite, or there's a lot of money there. They do what they're told.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't get to be on air.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's really good, that the information can come out through shows like yours.
Mm.
And and it's a lot of these things that we're not aware of how many of these undercurrent shows and ways of spreading information are there, and how much people are really informed or have some spark of that truth or that reality in, because they've come across it somewhere. And of course, you don't see it echoed in the mainstream media, but once there's a confirmation from, for instance, the emergence of the world teacher, or a sighting of a UFO, or all these things together, then people will know, and they will step forward and they will say, yes, this is the right thing. This is the way to go for the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. With that being said, what is your message to people, to everybody who's sitting here looking at you, Girard Aartson, saying, okay, you have our attention, everything you say makes sense. How do you recommend they move forward? Do they meditate? Should they go on a sabbatical? Like, what's your recommendation for them to evolve or awaken?
Well, see, everyone has their own background and upbringing and conditioning and their own situation that they have to deal with. But generally speaking, I would say, if you're worried about the state of the world, or if you're depressed, if it depresses you, get in touch with the reason for your being by putting yourself out there, making time, finding some way of being of service. Even if it's only to one other person, it will take away the attention from your own worries, and it will help you get into a proper relationship, even if it's with one other person. If you can meditate, of course, that really helps in that sense. But especially, be conscious, be aware of the fact that you're alive, and that you're an crucial part of this organism that we call our planet. Nobody can be missed, and everybody's valuable, and all need to take responsibility. And that's the only way, through justice, through we can only and this is how Benjamin Graham put it, and actually, according to Benjamin Graham, the world teacher has put it, we can only create justice through sharing, and only through justice can we secure peace on this planet. Because if we go on in the ways of competition, we will destroy ourselves eventually. And only when we are at peace with ourselves can we continue to evolve, and that's really the way into the future. So it's through sharing.
Sorry.
Yes.
No. Please speak, Gerard.
Through sharing we create justice, and through justice we create peace. That's the way forward.
The road to peace.
We have to do it. The world teacher won't do it. The space brothers and sisters won't do it. They can't do it because they would be imposing it on us if it doesn't come from us. They are here to inspire, to help, to show the way, to be our mentors, to be our inspiration, and that should help us on our way. The situation looks very bleak now, but it can't get any worse unless we let the planet fall to pieces, and that's not going to happen because the planet is slightly bigger than our individual lives. So and there's help at hand. There's so much help available. If we only knew how many brothers and sisters from space, from the other planets, are here to assist us. They have been helping since the early atom bomb tests and the atom bomb explosions and all the developments after that through the nuclear plants, etc., to keep the planet habitable, because our scientists have no idea how much pollution, how much um, how negative the effect has been of the nuclear fallout on the etheric planes of matter, which of our etheric bodies consist of.
Right.
And our physical
Right.
body is a precipitation of the etheric bodies. So, that's why we have the increasing, because of the pollution, the ongoing, not only nuclear, but also chemical, in the degradation of our etheric bodies, we see increasing instances of Alzheimer's, for instance. That's the cause. It burns holes in our etheric body, so our brains lack the energetic foundation. Just simply put in my own words. So this is how they've been helping us. If it weren't for their help, our planet would have been living here would have been hell already. So so much help available. Don't despair. Just act, and let's act together in the interest of humanity and the planet.
And should people who have had experiences, or people who perhaps will be having experiences in meeting some of these beings, should they talk about it? Shouldn't fear it. So put the rhetoric and the propaganda away, all right? Put that aside and welcome them with open arms, work with them. And do you talk about that? And I only say that because some people are very, very fearful about doing that.
It's up to everyone individually, because some people are more courageous, other people are more fearful. Some contact, the nature of the contact may differ. Some contact, some people don't like to put themselves forward, not even out of fear, but thinking, well, I'm not really that important. But I would say, try to find other people, maybe bring your stories together and put it forward, put it out. If I see how few people are still aware of the original contact accounts from the 1950s, that's why I have been trying to collect their stories, and or at least the things that bind their stories together, and that are confirmed by science and spirituality, to put them out there so that other people may feel reassured that what they experienced wasn't something in their heads or something to be afraid of.
That science has somehow substantiated it.
That it can be substantiated by science, yes. And if you've had negative experiences, some abduction experiences, etc. I'm not saying they're not real, but they're not extraterrestrial. They can be an overactive imagination, like in dreams. When we dream something, it's very real at that moment. But they can also be staged,
Government,
by dark agencies, drug induced, hypnosis induced. Stephen Greer also documented those things. So when something like that happened, and you read the original stories, then actually that wasn't extraterrestrials. It's not the extraterrestrials I need to be afraid of. It's the government misinformation and the people who are trying to spread confusion and fear. And there's no reason for fear. The only thing we need to fear is our own complacency and our own inaction. Whatever we can do to help people become active and do something to better the world for the betterment of humanity, anything helps. Everything helps. Every little bit helps.
Service to others. not
Yeah,
so
exactly.
much service to self.
Yes, indeed.
And then that raises all that vibration. And yeah, I agree. This is the part of the show where you get to promote yourself, promote your books, tell people how to find you.
Great. Well, yes, I've been mentioning my latest book several times, Pioneers of Oneness, the science and spirituality of UFOs and the Space Brothers. It's available on Amazon and all the other online bookshops, resources, platforms. I also mentioned before disclosure, dispelling the fog of speculation. It's in print, but people can also download it from my website, bgapublications.nl, in various languages, including English. And my other books can also be found on my website, at least the titles, and they're all of my books are available on Amazon and all the other book, Barnes and Noble and Waterstones and what have you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So, and perhaps I would like to mention my website on George Adamski. I put all the information that I have on George Adamski in a website, which is theadamskicase.nl with dashes between the words, the-adamski-case.nl. It's in English. And if you want to know anything about Adamski, anything meaningful, anything truthful, I would say people go there because there I present the facts in context.
Okay,
So,
and that's how they can communicate with you. Maybe they have a story to share from family members going back to that time
email
period
address is there. Yes. Yeah.
and start,
Okay.
a collection of stories. I think that's wonderful. Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for joining us.
Thank you
And
very much.
Thank
yeah,
you.
this will be airing September 30th. So that will be the night, and we will send you all of the information and the promo and the links so you can watch it. And there's going to be a chat room that evening since it's a recording, and we will invite you if you'd like. I mean, it will be live at that point. It might be kind of hard for you with the time change, but
I
we will
might be asleep.
definitely. Yeah, you might be asleep, but you might be able to, catch some comments if you happen to wake up. So.
At
Right.
3 a.m.
Yeah, 2 a.m., 3
Yes.
a.m. But but thank you again for tuning in. It was such a pleasure having you come on. Just a wealth of information, and it's a wonderful perspective. And I'm really hoping that when people see this, that they're going to be able to look at things in an entirely different manner.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much.
No,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right.
Good night, or
Have
I
a
guess
good
it is
night.
good night for
For
you.
me, it's good
Good
night.
night.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we've come to the end of a fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. Wow, that was really informative. Big thank you to Girard Aartson for coming on board with this fascinating information. And of course, we do want to thank Joe Montaldo, our producer, for getting this up and running for you guys. And big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring us. Again, we love you. We appreciate your confidence in us and your faith in us. It is very much an honor to represent you guys. Remember to go by the International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. There I said it. Please subscribe. Follow the network on Facebook. Follow the Outer Realm on Facebook. Give us a like. Amelia really keeps up with all of that. If you'd like to see a specific guest or topic, or maybe you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you have comments or concerns, please email us at theouterrealmcontact@gmail.com. Theouterrealmcontact@gmail.com. Next week, we get into spooky month. So we will be welcoming on Wednesday. Hopefully I'm saying this correctly. It's either Micah or Mika T. Dank, who will discuss attachments and things of that nature. It would be pretty exciting. Conspiracy theories. Thursday night welcomes Dan and Kat Eckert, whom will be discussing the paranormal and the occult. So until then, I'll all of you guys have a great night. Have a wonderful weekend. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's segment. Good night.